A whole nip was born tonight.
That's fucking amazing. How, bro? I see that I have a new emoji when I came in here.
I'm the first lightning tip on the nest too. With your
Oh
You know what
my
else happened
made
goodness.
today?
history tonight. So
You know what
yeah,
else
let's
happened
go.
today?
What's up?
Uh, the mempool finally cleared the overflow after like it's been a
No
month
way.
or something.
Really?
Yeah, we're below 300 megabytes in the mempool again. Check your
But it's
Timechain
not clear
calendar,
yet.
man.
It's not
Really?
clear yet
You
though.
go to timechaincalendar.com and you can see for yourself.
These scammy ordinals is not selling now, like they praying or what?
Well, so that's got to be like some part of it, but the hash rate is really the story because there's been I think 4 difficulty increases in a row, and the hash rate's totally kept up with it right now. Um, right now we're getting 9 minute 55-second blocks. Like these multiple difficulty increases are not slowing down the pace of blocks. Blocks are continuing to come in faster than the 10-minute target. That's the story to me, because basically block production is keeping pace. Whether or not degens are degenning the same amount they were a month ago, I don't care about as much. It's like the block production force out there is fucking kicking ass. And so that's what I'm kind of like appreciating today is like they got through it. It took like a month, but they got through all that fucking overflow data. And as it turns out, because we've been watching this shit the whole time. In the beginning it was like it's all about these ordinals, a lot of just consolidation exchange transactions. We found out about different wallets that were doing weird sort of formatted transactions and stuff. So it's like it's a lot of different factors. It's not just ordinals. Either way, despite multiple consecutive increases in difficulty, the hash rate is just crushing it. So that's the thing to watch for, is like we're getting kind of used to being around like 350 exahash per second. It's like amazing. That's like kind of becoming a norm, and it's just going to keep going. And to me, that's the story. Like we got sovereign nations bringing hash online or something going on
Well,
here.
isn't that the case? Like I know Max Kaiser's big on that. Like follow the hash. And the hash rate has been just increasing linearly for like a long time. Since the China ban, right?
Yeah, but it's, I mean, there's kind of another level it's going in. It's kicking into another gear right now because, I mean, I keep thinking at some point all of this cumulative increases in difficulty are gonna have their impact, and the fact that the hash rate's continuing to outpace it is telling you there's new hash coming online, uh, like at a pretty impressive clip right now.
Well, I saw some news about some of the public blockchain miners or the public Bitcoin miners here in the states, bringing new hash online. I think Riot posted something the other day that they were bringing on more hash. So I think that some of these miners in the U.S. that that were like started mining during the peak, they didn't necessarily capitulate during the lows, and now with the ramp up in price again, I think they're deploying more hash, and yeah,
Well,
I
okay,
think
so
that's what we're
so
seeing.
so the simple take is, yeah, the price is going up so that more people want to mine, but the reality is with hash rate going up like this, the people that are not adding hash rate to their arsenal are getting left in the dust. Because if you stand still in this environment, you're earning less and less. You're becoming less competitive as that hash rate increases. You have to keep increasing your hash rate to stay competitive. And then simultaneously, there's multiple threads here. Simultaneously, we're about a year out from the next halving. That means it's about a year out until your income as a miner is cut in half. Like overnight, one block you're going to be getting 6.25, the next block you're going to get 3.125. That shit is coming. And it's like a milestone that's getting more real as it approaches. And if you look at most estimates out there right now, we're a little over a year away. But with this hash rate continuing to increase and with block times coming in below 10 minutes more often than not, it's going to happen sooner. So I think we have less than a year. I think it's going to be early April and maybe even late March. Who knows? We'll
Yeah, I
see.
agree
But
with
this
you.
is this
And
is the thing to watch, because there's like deep uh, mining FOMO almost about that pending incoming halving, and at the same time there's like the need to increase your hash rate to keep up with the hash rate on the network. It's wild right now.
yeah, I agree with you. And I would just say that I think the fact that some of these public miners did not go underwater, basically, um, is oops, sorry, excuse me, my thing fell out. The fact that these public miners did not go underwater and they're still competing for it, it forces them, like you said, to deploy more hash, and so there it's a race, for the next halving. It started already.
One
Yep.
of the things I think is underappreciated about the mining community is how much of it is not in the public sphere, right? And also not as we consider like fully decentralized. So what I'm talking about is like big private equity sponsors, for example, who've made a big push into the renewable energy space on the back of the Inflation Reduction Act, have fully figured out that every time they build a wind farm and every time they build a solar farm, they're plugging in Bitcoin miners, regardless of whether or not they're making a press release or telling people about it. It's happening behind the scenes. Like I know from my day job that firms that you would never think of as having exposure to crypto and but they do have huge exposure to infrastructure projects, have figured this out. So it used to be, 3, 5 years ago, you'd get laughed out of a boardroom if you mentioned Bitcoin. Today, if you're having a board discussion about grid stabilization, everyone knows what you're talking about. And these are C-suite board level conversations that I don't think people in like the standard Bitcoin community typically have exposure to or appreciate. So there's like big money behind a lot of the stuff that we're not even seeing.
Yeah, watch what they do, not what they say, right?
What's
Yeah,
also
but at this
interesting
this
is
is like the
oh, sorry,
part of the
PC.
cycle where that kind of stuff's happening more, and it's not totally visible, and people don't totally realize it. And that's why people looking at the market right now are still scratching their head. Most normies, no coiners out there, they're like reading all the FUD in the New York Times and then seeing that the Bitcoin price is over 30,000, and they haven't quite like put two and two together, and they don't realize it. And it's usually only about the time that the halving's coming around when there's even more noise just anticipating that thing happening, and all these things converge, and this is why we will continue to have just ripping bull cycle kick off at this part of the cycle. Like this is what happens every time, and every time it's just new levels of normal integration. I mean, I love hearing what you were just saying about the C-suite stuff, but just think in the last year what we've heard about like Shell and Exxon, like major fucking oil companies. And now you have Russia and China and all this movement away from the dollar, and these entities are looking for any way to have the ability to bypass the legacy system and the US dollar system, and Bitcoin plays a huge role. Russia is the second biggest miner right now by hash power.
I was just gonna say, I wanted to say that what the C-suite stuff is great, but if you look at like Foundry has been growing like crazy, but then Amp Pool and F2 Pool are essentially keeping pace with Foundry, and I think that's just crazy. Like it's nuts to me how all of these different pools are growing at such a quick pace and keeping pace with each other, growing their hash.
I've always kind of framed it as like old world versus legacy systems, like systematically, like how it works. Like, if you're a bank and you cash checks and, do like those paper transactions, it's analog, right? And versus like compared to, how obviously Bitcoin works, but like, like just it's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of framing. And I know certainly there's a lot of smart people out there. But I think it's, the best interest of all of us is to educate and, help people where they are along the journey. And, I think TC, what you're doing with like the, your website, and you're expanding that, like, because I worked in like lean manufacturing, which was a lot of like visualization and like simplification and like taking complex things and just simplifying. I was in Toyota plants in Kentucky, and I worked for Danaher, which was a real big, industrial operation, working on like simplifying, industrial like manufacturing. And it's all about like Kaizen and like, Japanese, like that's the concept behind it. Like, but the, the bottom line, it's like taking complex ideas and simplifying them so that like people can understand, because you know, people will be driven through incentives, number one, but they'll also be kind of guided through like, simplified means. That's why like TikTok works so well on the human brain in psychology, because it's like simple, like 15-second like iterations of just it's programming to some degree, but like but the mind, it's like craves it, it's like not much different than like a sugar rush. But like
Yeah.
my,
No, I
my
hear you on that. And when I did the time chain calendar, that was kind of the essence of it. That whole thing came from like a drawing I did on a napkin, that kind of thing, where it's like you've got the block height like a block clock in the middle, but then you've got like the red circle of counting down the blocks to the difficulty adjustment, which is a roughly a 2 week cycle, and then the orange circle outside of that, which is the countdown to the halving, and that's like a 4 year cycle. So just there, it's almost like a clock, but it's really a calendar. It's these long periods of time. It's this 2 week cycle inside of a 4 year cycle, and you're seeing the progress of this chain, this time chain, and it starts to really work on your time preference when you watch it, because like you can actually see that difficulty adjustment indicator in a slightly different position each day, almost like an hour hand on a clock is moving. It moves about that much on the circle each day. So you start looking at it each day, and like you're traversing this 2 week cycle. And like I've been staring at the motherfucker for like 5 months now since I launched it, and like I can recognize where the halving indicator has moved. It's a one of those things. It's like a simple way to kind of like understand this thing that's very sort of nebulous, like hard for people to understand otherwise. And I'm trying to like get people to focus on this other stuff. You've got the hash rate, you've got the projected difficulty adjustment, and you've got the average block time. Those three pieces go together because it's the 10-minute block time that is like the linchpin in Bitcoin. Think about it. If you didn't have the difficulty adjustment and the block time was not balanced, the difficulty wasn't adjusted to make the blocks come in closer to 10 minutes, what would have happened by now with all this added hash rate over the last 14 years? All 21 million Bitcoin would have been issued already. The difficulty adjustment literally is the pacing mechanism of Bitcoin's issuance, because the halving determines the final supply being under 21 million. You cut it in half and cut it in half and do that enough times, and there's nothing left. Like it eventually, there's no more issuance, and that's why we have a fixed supply. But it's because we have a regulated pace of 10-minute blocks that this thing takes 130, 140 years, multiple generations, and wasn't just mined in a matter of a couple years or months even. Think about it. That hash rate keeps increasing. Those blocks come faster, all the Bitcoin gets issued. So it's a powerful, critically important aspect of Bitcoin's design. And a lot of people hear, oh, difficulty adjustment. You hear it mentioned, but maybe you don't have like a concrete way to think of it. It's a really simple but really powerful thing. It's this 10-minute pace. So if anything, watch that. Are we ahead of the pace? Are we 9-minute 50-second block times? Is it slower? If it's slower, the difficulty is going to get decreased, meaning it's easier to find blocks. Like when China did their ban and like half the hash rate on the network shut off, and all of a sudden the the blocks started taking forever to get hit because you got that many less competitors, that much less hash power trying to find that block. So the blocks come in crazy slow. The difficulty adjustment drops the difficulty dramatically. And now anyone who's still mining has this extra incentive to mine more. People sitting on the sideline have an incentive to rush in and start mining because look how easy it is to find a block. So this is like one of the most powerful and important aspects of Bitcoin. A lot of people don't really understand it. I'm trying to make it easy to watch and think about, and like that to me is like that's where you individually can like level up and like kind of wrap your brain around Bitcoin in a new way, because it's profound what this thing does. And I hope my little app is just like a new way to like watch it and check it out. It's in 6 languages now. I just put out French. It's also in Spanish, Portuguese. I got Polish. I got Swedish. Um, and a lot more to come. I got someone doing Arabic translations,
Have
and
you?
trying to get someone to do Russian. And it's just gonna be like Bitcoin is this global thing, and people need to understand this. And the only reason I waste my breath trying to explain it to anybody else is hopefully they can then turn to someone else that they know and explain it to them and be like, "Yo, this thing has a fixed supply. We have this halving. It makes sure we got less than 21 million. This thing has a difficulty adjustment that makes sure that it's going to be my great great grandkids and there's still going to be sats to get. You'll still be able to mine and get some subsidy." And it's like this is important. Sorry for the rant. That's what I got.
Have you thought about a device, like a display device, where you can kind of have like a block clock kind of addendum, I guess, or so to say, or alternative, or that displays your time chain calendar? Or do you have an idea
So
of like a
so
hash that
it's a
you can?
it, it's a web app, my friend. It's a web app. It's at timechaincalendar.com.
Right. No, I
You
understand that.
can
I was
see
just
it on your
wondering if like
phone. You can
something where
see it
you
on your desktop. You could
right.
pull it up on a tablet. I saw someone get a custom little like tablet screen or like little external screen that they attached to like a Raspberry Pi, and they were like framing it in like a thing. I mean, honestly, it's a web app, dude. And like that's the beauty of it. Is like anyone with any device and any browser can pull it up, and you don't need an app store, and you don't have to download anything. You just go to timechaincalendar.com and
Even
you
better,
get it.
save it on your iPhone's home screen.
Yeah,
It's one
yeah,
of my favorite
it has a
apps.
progressive web app feature. So you can use the share button and you use the add to home screen option,
Yep,
and it'll save like a little app icon on your home screen,
it's
and
beautiful.
launches full screen. Doesn't have the little address bar there.
Yeah, TC, I couldn't agree with your take on the difficulty adjustment any more. It's not possible to agree more. I would just add that the difficulty adjustment is what maps Bitcoin onto time, right? So when we go back to first principles and we understand that money is your store of value through time, it's your saved time based on the effort and energy you put into creating value for yourself and others. The difficulty adjustment ensures that Bitcoin maps directly onto time as opposed to um, energy expended, right? So if you were to expend more energy without a difficulty adjustment, just like TC said, you would have already mined all the Bitcoin. But because of the difficulty adjustment, you actually have to flow through time before you can mine all the Bitcoin.
This is why I'm bullish, because there's smart people who are figuring shit out, and it's you know we're
Well, I would just say Satoshi was the smart person, and we should all thank him for
I
figuring this shit out.
I assume I assume it's a group of people, but yeah, agree.
Hey, Time Chain. I missed how you said that you put the Time Chain calendar on your home screen. Can you
Okay,
just?
so when you're in a mobile browser, if you're on like mobile Safari on iOS, or if you're on like a Samsung browser or Chrome or Brave or Firefox, any of those things on your mobile device, there's usually in either the share button, or you'll have like a on Android phones, it's like there's like a three dots little menu up at the top corner, and one of the options in there should be something along the lines of add to home screen, and it mentions the home screen specifically. And if you tap that, it's going to take a a logo and a title of text, and it makes a little app icon, and it looks like all your other apps on your phone. And if you launch it from the app icon, you get a full screen experience instead of it's still using the web browser that's on the phone, but it instructs it, it configures it not to show the address bar and the thing at the top. Like it takes over the whole screen, and it provides an app type experience for web apps. It's called a progressive web app. It's a specific technique of configuring a web application, and it basically uses the browsers or the phone's browser to do it. But hopefully you can find that add to home screen option and give it a whirl, and it's pretty nice.
And the other thing that's great about that is it saves your preferences. One of the great things that TC did was he made a lot of the fields customizable. So if you care more about one metric over another, you can swap one out. And each time you go onto the app like equivalent, it'll just keep your preferences instead of having to reconfigure each time.
Yeah, man,
Yeah,
there's actually a shitload of options. If you go into the little settings tab, you can show the mining pool, which is hidden by default. So each block, it'll tell you which mining pool found it. You can also switch the direction of the fee, like when it shows you the suggested fees from high to low. You can switch the direction of it. You can have it go left to right or right to left. I don't know why I get a kick out of that, but I think that's fucking cool. You can also hide the selectable tiles. You can hide the whole mempool and fees section and get like this really clean interface without all the extra data points. You can also change the date format and the time format. You can turn on sounds. It's got a sound thing now. It's been there for a while. A lot of people haven't found it. I haven't made a lot of noise about it, but you switch on sounds in the sound setting thing, and you can pick from like a water drop to like a sort of a doorbell sound to like this little gong bell sound. Every time there's a new block, it makes a noise. And it's kind of dope to be sitting there, like if you work on a computer and you keep it open in a browser, and every time a block is hit, you get this little sound in the background that's like ding, oh, there's another block. It's kind of cool. And then it's got all these languages you can switch it into, and yeah, man, it's kind of like it's got some options enough that you can tailor it the way that you want it to be, and there's more on the way, man. I got some big plans for this thing. This is just getting started.
I would say it would be awesome if we could like partner up like with an artist who could create like a custom frame around the device that just basically just houses your app, and so you could just display it like you would a block one.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of it. You can do whatever you want to. I have a friend
Right.
that took a like computer display, and he put it in a frame, and he pulled my thing up on it. Like I've pulled it up on a smart TV before. Um, it's kind of portable, just because anywhere that has access to the web that has a browser can pull it up.
Yeah, my thinking
yeah,
was, if you could get, something like an Amazon Fire, it's like an actual tablet, you could probably get one for
yeah. I'm
like
on.
70, $80 or whatever, and then you put it, maybe make a nice frame for it, maybe you package it up to something that's like $150. Like, the black box are, $400+ and so I think like having some kind of
Yeah,
alternative.
yeah. Time Chain. I actually messaged you that or noted you the other day, and we were talking back and forth about you doing a widget for it for the iPhone screen.
I think Timechain hit the exit button on accident or something, or he
Yeah,
had to
we
Yeah,
lost
I'll
Yeah.
him.
tell you what though, I love his passion for this. And
Yeah. Awesome.
yeah, I want to call like it feels to me like that's a dude in the right place at the right time, finding the right vibe. I feel the same about me right now with this whole thing. We had a special night. It's been great.